So here goes. I've been looking around this at MOOC for a couple weeks, poking in here and there, leaving a few cryptic comments, and Ben Wilkoff called me out on it today and suggested I leave a vlog with some of my thoughts and ideas. So I'm going to try and do that. They are fairly random, and I'm going to try and draw a thread through them, but I'm not quite sure how this is going to go. And this is going to be a one take, so we'll see. The first idea that's really jumped out at me in this section on connected learning and learning paths is Ben's idea of our network being more like a neighborhood, and that really resonated with me because I think that's really how my PLN started to really have meaning for me. It was when, rather than just randomly connecting with people, I connected in a more meaningful way with educators in an online course. And then the conversations went off to Twitter and continued from there. But I think some of the things that were important were the people I connected with were people at the same level of understanding I was in terms of connected learning. We were still figuring out together, and I think that's kind of empowering to figure stuff out with other people who are also figuring stuff out, rather than feeling like everyone else kind of knows everything and you're always playing catch up. So I really like that metaphor of the neighborhood, and it really, quite a few people in their blog posts in this course have commented on how people are really the linchpin of this whole connected learning piece, and it made me think of the phrase that really learning is a social activity. And when you look at everything through that lens, you realize, of course, you have to connect with people. It has to be about the people for real learning to take place. In fact, you could argue that if there isn't a connection, then is it really learning? And I think a lot of what we do in schools, there's no connection, and I think you could argue that it's not really learning either. I once said in a failed attempt to apply for Google Teacher Academy, I made a video, which I'm quite proud of. And one of the things I said was students really love to learn, they just don't always love or like to do school. And I think there's some truth in that, and I'll come back to school in a bit because as a pragmatist, really, I'm in this course, I'm always looking at everything through the lens of what does this mean for how we do K-12 education, and what skills should we be teaching our students so when they graduate they can be successful, connected learners. The second post or vlog that really grabbed my attention was by Scott Hazeu, I think is how you pronounce his name, and he proposed the metaphor of the nature trail as a learning path, and I really liked that. I really liked that it really brought home the idea of learning as being circular, and I really liked his story about how once he was comfortable with the content, he was able to let go and let his tour group take some control of the learning, and how that made for a much richer experience. So thank you, Scott, for making me think and giving me this metaphor to bounce around. I thought I'd add a couple twists to it. The first one, coming back to school, is that I agree completely that true learning is a really circular endeavor. And school is about the most linear thing I can possibly think of. Students go up the grades towards that magic graduation date. Students go through each term or semester, and everything they do has got to do with passing that term or semester and getting that magic grade. There's really nothing circular about school whatsoever. So I think as we look to ways for connected learning to have an impact on our K-12 education system, if we think that that's important, I think we need to look at finding ways to make school less linear. And I'd like to propose that a really good place to start is with our assessment practices. I think the sooner we can do away with grades and percents and final exams and focus more on e-portfolios and giving students ongoing feedback so they know what they're good at and what they need to do to get better, I think will be a big step towards preparing our students to be better connected learners. In terms of the metaphor, I wonder how that nature guide would do if there's a supervisor looking over their shoulder, making sure that they taught exactly what they were supposed to teach. And then if that tour group was going to take a test at the end and the supervisor's job depended on it, I imagine it would be quite a different outcome. The other piece of the metaphor that I'm struggling with is, or with this whole connected open learning piece, and I need to go and listen to the session that Dave Cormier did on rhizomatic learning, because I'm still trying to figure out where content fits into this more organic learning process, because I really do feel like in certain places and certain subjects there's real value in becoming a content expert. To go back to the metaphor of the learning path, if that same tour guide was to take a group of graduate students on that, ecology, students who've been studying ecology on that same trail, you can imagine that the conversations and questions would be much deeper and richer than if it was people who didn't know anything about ecology. And so I think we can't underestimate the importance of that content knowledge. And at least in the K-12 environment, I think that there is a place to dictate to some degree what content knowledge is really important for students to know, so that they can ask those deeper questions and those richer questions. Certainly not the amount that we are doing in schools right now, but I'm reluctant to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think there is value in that. So I think that said, I'm going to hang up on this vlog and hope someone enjoys it.